Warning: his video contains details of real crime cases. Watch with caution. If you're a fan of true crime investigations and want to follow more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any case. What if I told you one of Silicon Valley's brightest tech heirs, Ethan Blackwood, didn't just inherit billions but also became one of America's most notorious serial killers? You might think this sounds like a plot from a movie, but this terrifying story is real. In the heart of Silicon Valley, where dreams of success and innovation flourish, a chilling story unfolds that challenges our understanding of wealth, privilege, and human nature. What does it truly take to be happy? Some might say health, love, and money are the keys to contentment. But what happens when you have more than you could ever need? For Ethan Blackwood, heir to a vast family fortune in the tech industry, money and power didn't bring the peace one might expect. Instead, his life of luxury and privilege led him down a path of destruction and death that would shock not just California, but the entire nation. Born into one of America's wealthiest families, Ethan seemed to have it all. The only child of Warren Blackwood, a successful tech mogul, and Olivia Blackwood, a former model turned philanthropist, Ethan's childhood was marked by extravagance beyond imagination. Sprawling mansions in Palo Alto, a fleet of luxury cars, and even private jets were just part of his everyday life. From an early age, it appeared that Ethan was destined to follow in his family's footsteps, taking over Blackwood Tech, the pioneering software company founded by his grandfather, Charles Blackwood. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, troubling signs began to emerge. Even as a teenager attending an elite private school in San Francisco, Ethan exhibited eccentric and disturbing behavior. Classmates recall him strolling through hallways eating dog biscuits, which at the time seemed like mere eccentricity. Little did they know that this was just a glimpse into Ethan's disturbed psyche, one that would eventually lead him to commit acts of unimaginable cruelty. As Ethan approached his 21st birthday, he assumed control of a significant portion of Blackwood Tech. But his passion for technology and innovation quickly gave way to a fascination with what he called missions, criminal activities he carried out with his best friend, Jake Miller. These missions started as nocturnal thefts, petty crimes that gave the duo an adrenaline rush. But soon, they would evolve into something far more sinister and deadly. The story of Ethan Blackwood forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of evil and the influence of extreme privilege. How could someone who had every opportunity in life turn to such darkness? Was it the weight of expectation, the thrill of breaking taboos, or something more innate and sinister within Ethan himself? As we delve deeper into this tale, we'll explore the events that led a Silicon Valley prince to become one of America's most notorious killers. We'll examine the lives he destroyed, the families he shattered, and the community left reeling in the wake of his crimes. Through interviews with those who knew him, police reports, and court documents, we'll attempt to understand the mind of a killer who had everything and still wanted more. This is not just a story of murder and mayhem. It's a cautionary tale about the dark side of the American dream, the potential for evil that lurks in unexpected places, and the devastating consequences when unchecked privilege collides with a twisted mind. As we delve deeper into the history of the key players in this tragic tale, we must first turn our attention to Ethan Blackwood himself. Born on August 30th, 1985, in the affluent suburbs of Palo Alto, California, Ethan was the golden child of Silicon Valley royalty. His father, Warren Blackwood, had transformed Blackwood Tech from a garage startup into a multi-billion-dollar tech giant, while his mother, Olivia, was known for her philanthropic efforts across the Bay Area. From an early age, Ethan was surrounded by luxury that most could only dream of. The family's primary residence was a sprawling mansion in the hills overlooking Silicon Valley, complete with a private helipad and an underground garage housing a collection of rare and exotic cars. Summers were spent at their beachfront property in the Hamptons, while winters saw the family jetting off to their chalet in Aspen. Despite the material excess, those close to the family describe a household that was emotionally cold. Warren was often absent, consumed by his work at Blackwood Tech, while Olivia busied herself with charity galas and social events. Ethan, an only child, was left in the care of a rotating cast of nannies and private tutors. At the prestigious Oakwood Academy, Ethan quickly gained a reputation for his eccentric behavior. Former classmates recall a charismatic yet unsettling presence. "He always seemed to be performing," says Sarah Chin, who sat next to Ethan in AP chemistry, "like he was playing a character of himself. But sometimes the mask would slip, and you'd catch a glimpse of something different." It was during his high school years that Ethan met Jake Miller, the son of a local car dealer. Despite their different backgrounds, the two formed an intense friendship that would prove to be the catalyst for the horrors to come. Jake, described by many as a follower always seeking approval, found in Ethan a charismatic leader who promised excitement and danger. As Ethan approached adulthood, he began to show an interest in the family business. At 21, he was given a seat on the board of Blackwood Tech and began to take on more responsibilities within the company. However, those who worked with him during this time describe a young man more interested in the power and prestige of his position than in the actual work. He'd show up to meetings in sports cars that cost more than most people's homes, recalls Michael Torres, a former Blackwood Tech executive. He'd make grandiose promises about revolutionizing the industry, but when it came time to actually do the work, he was nowhere to be found. It was around this time that Ethan and Jake began their missions. What started as late-night joyrides in Ethan's luxury cars soon escalated to breaking into vacation homes in the area. For Ethan, it seemed to be about the thrill, the rush of doing something forbidden. For Jake, it was a chance to be part of Ethan's world of wealth and excitement. Little did anyone know that these nocturnal adventures were just the beginning. As Ethan's thirst for excitement grew, so too did the darkness within him. The stage was set for a series of events that would shock the nation and leave a trail of devastation in its wake. As Ethan Blackwood approached his 30th birthday, the veneer of his privileged life began to crack. The thrill of board meetings and tech innovations no longer satisfied his growing appetite for excitement. His nighttime excursions with Jake Miller, once mere adrenaline-fueled pranks, took a sinister turn. In the summer of 2012, residents of affluent neighborhoods in the San Francisco Bay Area began reporting a series of bizarre thefts. Items stolen ranged from lawn ornaments to entire trees uprooted from manicured gardens. Local police initially dismissed these incidents as juvenile pranks, unaware that they were witnessing the early stages of a deadly escalation. It started small. Jake Miller would later confess to investigators. "We drive around in Ethan's Lamborghini, scoping out houses. He'd point at something, a gnome, a wind chime, whatever caught his eye and say, 'That's our target.' It was like a game to him. But for Ethan, the game was changing. The rush from these petty thefts was wearing thin, and he began to seek out more dangerous pursuits. Security camera footage from this period shows two figures, their faces obscured, breaking into high-end homes while the owners were away. The intruders wouldn't steal valuable items. Instead, they'd rearrange furniture or leave cryptic messages scrawled on mirrors. He called it leaving a signature, Jake explained. Ethan said it was about power, about knowing we could enter someone's private space and leave without a trace, except for the trace we chose to leave. As the summer wore on, the incidents became more frequent and more daring. In August, the pair broke into the San Francisco Zoo after hours. Nothing was stolen, but several animal enclosures were found open the next morning, causing panic among zoo staff and visitors. It was during this period of escalation that tragedy struck the Blackwood family. On September 15, 2012, Warren Blackwood was found dead in the study of their Palo Alto mansion. The tech mogul was slumped over his desk, a single gunshot wound to his head, with a revolver lying nearby. The initial police investigation quickly ruled Warren's death a suicide. Ethan, appearing distraught, told detectives that his father had been struggling with depression, overwhelmed by the pressures of running Blackwood Tech in an increasingly competitive market. "Dad always said that in Silicon Valley, you're only as good as your last innovation," Ethan said in his statement to the police. I think it all just became too much for him." The tech world mourned the loss of a pioneer, and sympathy poured in for the Blackwood family. Olivia retreated from public life, while Ethan took on a more prominent role at Blackwood Tech. To the outside world, he appeared to be a son stepping up in the wake of tragedy, determined to carry on his father's legacy. But behind closed doors, a different story was unfolding. In the weeks following Warren's death, Ethan and Jake's nocturnal activities intensified. Their missions became more frequent, more reckless, and increasingly violent. What no one realized at the time was that Warren Blackwood's death was not the end of a tragic story, but the beginning of a horrifying new chapter. The true nature of his passing, and the dark events it would set in motion, would only come to light years later, leaving a community in shock and forcing America to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, power, and the capacity for evil. On a crisp May evening in 2013, in the quiet suburban town of Pleasanton, California, a series of events began to unfold that would ultimately expose the dark underbelly of Silicon Valley's golden boy, Ethan Blackwood. Jason Turner, a 32-year-old family man, had recently listed his pickup truck for sale online. Jason and his wife, Sarah, were expecting their second child, and the extra cash from the sale would help with the mounting expenses. Little did they know that this simple act would lead to a nightmare beyond imagination. On May 6th, at approximately 7:30 p.m., two men arrived at the Turner residence for a test drive. Security camera footage from a neighbor's house would later reveal these men to be Ethan Blackwood and Jake Miller. Jason, described by friends and family as friendly and trusting, welcomed the potential buyers. He was excited about the sale. Sarah Turner would later recount, her voice breaking. "He kissed me goodbye and said he'd be back in 20 minutes. That was the last time I saw him." As the minutes ticked by with no sign of Jason's return, Sarah's concern grew. She sent a series of text messages, all of which went unanswered. By 9 p.m., with still no word from her husband, Sarah's worry turned to panic. She called the local police, but they assured her that it was too early to file a missing persons report. The next morning, with Jason still missing, a full-scale search was launched. The community rallied around the Turner family, organizing search parties and plastering the town with missing person posters. But as days passed with no leads, hope began to fade. It wasn't until 5 days later that a breakthrough came. A jogger in a nearby industrial park found Jason's cell phone discarded in a ditch. This discovery shifted the investigation from a missing person case to a potential homicide. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing trail of evidence. Security footage from businesses along the route of the supposed test drive showed Jason's truck heading not towards the freeway as expected, but towards the outskirts of town. The most chilling piece of evidence came from a gas station on the outskirts of Pleasanton. Its cameras captured clear images of Ethan Blackwood filling up Jason's truck, while Jake Miller could be seen in the passenger seat. Jason was nowhere in sight. With this new information, police obtained a warrant to search Ethan Blackwood's properties. What they found at his private airplane hangar in San Carlos shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Jason's truck was there, partially disassembled. But it was the discovery in a remote corner of the hangar that turned the case into a national sensation. There, investigators found an industrial-grade incinerator, still warm to the touch. Forensic analysis of the incinerator revealed microscopic bone fragments and teeth, later confirmed to be Jason's. The level of heat required to reduce a human body to such small fragments spoke to the calculated nature of the crime. As news of the gruesome discovery broke, the nation watched in horror. How could Ethan Blackwood, the charismatic tech heir, be involved in such a heinous act? What could have driven him to commit such a crime? And most importantly, was Jason Turner his first victim, or merely the first to be discovered? The answers to these questions would unravel a web of deceit and violence that had been hidden behind the glossy facade of Silicon Valley success for far too long. As the investigation into Jason Turner's murder unfolded, law enforcement agencies found themselves peeling back layers of a much larger, more sinister story. The discovery of Ethan Blackwood's involvement opened a Pandora's box of cold cases and mysterious disappearances that had plagued the Bay Area for years. Detective Sarah Rodriguez, lead investigator on the Turner case, recounts the moment everything changed. "We thought we were dealing with a single homicide, horrific as it was. But as we dug deeper into Blackwood's history, we realized we were looking at a pattern of behavior that stretched back years. One of the first connections made was to the disappearance of Amanda Chen, a rising star in the tech world who had briefly dated Ethan in the summer of 2012. Amanda had vanished without a trace in August of that year, just weeks before Warren Blackwood's supposed suicide. At the time, her disappearance had been treated as a potential runaway case, given her history of mental health struggles. With fresh eyes on the case, investigators uncovered a series of disturbing text messages between Ethan and Jake in the days leading up to Amanda's disappearance. In one particularly chilling exchange, Ethan wrote, "She's becoming a problem. We need to make her disappear permanently." This discovery led to a renewed search of Blackwoods properties. At his sprawling ranch in Napa Valley, cadaver dogs alerted to an area near an old barn. Excavation revealed human remains, later identified through DNA analysis as Amanda Chen. As news of this second victim broke, the media frenzy reached fever pitch. Silicon Valley, once Ethan's adoring audience, now watched in horror as the extent of his crimes began to come to light. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As detectives revisited the circumstances of Warren Blackwood's death, inconsistencies began to emerge. The angle of the gunshot wound, the lack of gunpowder residue on Warren's hands, and the type of firearm used all pointed to one horrifying conclusion. Warren Blackwood's suicide had been staged. Ballistics tests confirmed that the gun found at the scene of Warren's death matched the one used to kill Jason Turner. This weapon was eventually traced back to a black market arms dealer with connections to Jake Miller. FBI profiler Dr. Emily Watson, brought in to consult on the case, offered insight into Ethan's psyche. What we're seeing here is a classic case of a thrill killer. For Blackwood, the murders weren't about hatred or revenge. They were about power, control, and the ultimate rush of taking a life. As the investigation progressed, a timeline of Ethan's descent into violence emerged. What began as petty thefts and break-ins had escalated to murder, with each crime more brazen than the last. The killing of his father appeared to be a turning point, emboldening Ethan to take greater risks. Jake Miller, facing multiple life sentences, eventually agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. His testimony would prove crucial in understanding the full scope of Ethan's crimes. "Ethan always said we were untouchable," Jake revealed in a sworn statement. "He believed his money and his family name would protect us from anything. And for a long time, he was right." As the case against Ethan Blackwood built, the question on everyone's mind was, how many more victims were there? And how had one of America's most privileged young men become one of its most prolific killers? The turning point in the Ethan Blackwood investigation came on a sweltering August afternoon in 2015. FBI agents, acting on information provided by Jake Miller, descended upon Blackwood's secluded Napa Valley ranch. What they discovered there would send shockwaves through the nation and forever change how America viewed its tech elite. Hidden behind a false wall in one of the property's outbuildings, investigators uncovered a state-of-the-art crematorium. This wasn't the kind of equipment one would find in a standard funeral home. This was an industrial-grade incinerator capable of reaching temperatures well over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The moment we saw that incinerator, we knew we were dealing with something far beyond what we had initially imagined, recalled FBI Special Agent Marcus Thompson. This wasn't just about covering up a crime. This was about systematic eradication of evidence. Forensic teams worked around the clock, meticulously sifting through ashes and debris. Their findings were nothing short of horrifying. Minuscule bone fragments, teeth, and traces of DNA belonging to multiple individuals were recovered from the incinerator and surrounding area. Dr. Samantha Reeves, the lead forensic anthropologist on the case, described the challenges they faced. "The level of destruction was unprecedented in my career. Blackwood had clearly done his research. The incinerator was designed to leave as little trace as possible. It was only through the most advanced forensic techniques that we were able to recover any evidence at all." As news of the discovery broke, the nation watched in stunned silence. The idea that such atrocities could be committed by someone born into immense privilege challenged many long-held beliefs about wealth and morality. But the incinerator was just the beginning. A thorough search of the property revealed a hidden bunker beneath the main house. Inside, investigators found what could only be described as a trophy room. Personal effects belonging to the victims, watches, jewelry, even driver's licenses, were meticulously cataloged and displayed. It was like walking into the lair of a serial killer from a Hollywood movie, Detective Rodriguez recounted, her voice still tinged with disbelief. Except this was real, and the man responsible was someone who had been celebrated on magazine covers and invited to speak at prestigious universities. Perhaps most chilling were the detailed journals found in the bunker. In them, Ethan had meticulously documented each of his crimes, describing in graphic detail the thrill he derived from each murder. The journals provided a disturbing glimpse into the mind of a killer who viewed his actions not as crimes, but as artistic expressions of power. One entry, dated just days after Jason Turner's disappearance, read, "The look in his eyes when he realized what was happening. It was exhilarating. In that moment, I held absolute power over life and death. No board meeting, no tech innovation could ever compare to that rush." As the evidence mounted, the full scope of Ethan Blackwood's crimes began to take shape. The man once hailed as a tech visionary was now revealed to be one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. The discovery of the incinerator and bunker marked a point of no return in the investigation. There could be no doubt about Ethan's guilt, no possibility of an alternative explanation. The golden boy of Silicon Valley had been unmasked as a monster, leaving a nation to grapple with how such evil could have gone undetected for so long. In the fall of 2016, the trial of Ethan Blackwood began, captivating the nation and sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley. The courthouse in San Jose, California, became the epicenter of a media frenzy as prosecutors laid out their case against the former tech prodigy turned serial killer. Over the course of 6 grueling weeks, the jury heard testimony from forensic experts, law enforcement officials, and perhaps most compellingly, from Jake Miller, Ethan's former accomplice. Miller, in exchange for avoiding the death penalty, provided a chilling account of their crimes, detailing Ethan's meticulous planning and apparent lack of remorse. He treated each murder like a product launch, Miller testified, his voice barely above a whisper. Every detail was planned, every contingency accounted for. He called it disrupting mortality. On November 18, 2016, after just 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict, guilty on all counts. Ethan Blackwood was convicted of the murders of Jason Turner, Amanda Chin, and his own father, Warren Blackwood, as well as multiple counts of conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Judge Maria Hernandez, her voice steady but tinged with disgust, sentenced Blackwood to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. "Mr. Blackwood, you have not only taken innocent lives but have shattered the trust and security of an entire community," she stated. "The court can conceive of no punishment sufficient to address the depravity of your crimes." As Blackwood was led from the courtroom, his face a mask of indifference, the families of his victims embraced, their long journey for justice finally at an end. The aftermath of the trial saw a period of intense soul-searching within the tech industry. How had someone so publicly visible, so seemingly successful, harbored such darkness? The case sparked debates about the culture of idolatry surrounding tech entrepreneurs and the potential dangers of unchecked wealth and power. Sarah Turner, Jason's widow, became a vocal advocate for victims' rights and corporate accountability. Ethan Blackwood was enabled by a system that valued innovation over humanity, she said in a tearful interview. "We cannot let this happen again." In 2017, a separate trial found Ethan guilty of Laura Chin's murder, adding another life sentence to his already considerable time behind bars. The following year, he was convicted of his father's murder, cementing his status as one of America's most notorious killers. Today, Ethan Blackwood resides in a maximum security prison, his days of luxury and adulation a distant memory. The empire he was set to inherit has crumbled, with Blackwood Tech filing for bankruptcy in the wake of the scandals. The case of Ethan Blackwood serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. It challenges our assumptions about success, privilege, and the human capacity for darkness. As America continues to grapple with the implications of this case, one question remains at the forefront of many minds. In our pursuit of innovation and success, what warning signs might we be missing? The story of Ethan Blackwood is more than just a true crime sensation. It's a cautionary tale for our times, a reminder that beneath the glossy exterior of success may lie unimaginable horrors. As we move forward, the challenge lies in balancing our admiration for achievement with a healthy skepticism and a commitment to valuing human life above all else.